The savior who slays. Donald Trump's ironic crusade to save NATO by setting it on fire. There are many ways to end an alliance. One may starve it of funds, hollow it out with indifference, or slowly suffocate it beneath bureaucratic drift. Donald Trump, however, prefers a more theatrical method: proclaim oneself its savior while simultaneously threatening to invade one of its members. It is governance as performance art, geopolitics as late-stage parody. At 79, Mr. Trump has entered what might generously be called his imperial phase. Less generously, it resembles a man shouting at the television, except the television is the world order and the shouting comes with aircraft carriers. From the cabin of Air Force One to the all-caps amphitheater of Truth Social, he has announced, again, that he saved North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Without him, he insists, the alliance would have collapsed into irrelevance, a rusting Cold War relic abandoned by freeloading Europeans. "I'm the one who saved NATO," he declared, triple exclamation marks doing the heavy lifting where evidence might otherwise be required. The timing is exquisite. For at precisely the moment Mr. Trump demands gratitude for preserving NATO, he is also threatening to do something NATO has never quite prepared for: attack itself. His fixation on Greenland, an autonomous territory of Denmark, and thus squarely under NATO's collective defense umbrella, has evolved from farce to menace. What began as a real estate whim, a large deal, has hardened into something resembling an ultimatum. Greenland will be taken, he says, one way or the other. This is not merely ironic. It is structurally absurd. NATO's founding principle, Article 5, treats an attack on one member as an attack on all. An American assault on Danish territory would therefore constitute an American attack on NATO, and, by extension, a NATO war against the United States. The alliance would not merely crack, it would implode, collapsing into a legal and moral singularity from which only lawyers and undertakers would emerge enriched, and yet Mr. Trump persists, simultaneously demanding credit for NATO's survival and threatening actions that would ensure its demise. In this contradiction lies the essence of Trumpism: power without coherence, conviction without constraint, and irony so thick it could insulate the Arctic. Saving NATO, one shout at a time. Mr. Trump's self-appointed role as NATO's redeemer rests on a familiar narrative. When he arrived in the White House in 2017, he claims, NATO was on life support. European allies were delinquent, indolent and ungrateful, lounging beneath the American security umbrella while refusing to pay their fair share. He alone, through the judicious application of bullying and humiliation, forced them to spend more on defense. Without his intervention, NATO would have dissolved into irrelevance. The facts, as ever, are less obliging. The now famous 2% of GDP defense spending target was agreed in 2014 at NATO's Wales summit, 3 years before Mr. Trump's first inauguration. It was a response not to American scolding but to Russian tanks rolling into Crimea. Defense budgets began rising across Europe not because Mr. Trump raised his voice, but because Vladimir Putin raised an army. By 2024, 23 of NATO's 32 members met or exceeded the target, up from a handful a decade earlier. Driven by fear, not flattery, Mr. Trump's preferred embellishment is to claim that he pushed allies not merely to 2%, but towards 4% or even 5%. This figure exists largely in the same realm as his infrastructure weeks and healthcare plans: rhetorically useful, practically fictional. No NATO summit has endorsed such a target. No European Parliament has budgeted for it. It is a number designed less to be met than to be brandished. The irony is unavoidable. Mr. Trump berates allies for insufficient commitment while openly questioning whether the alliance itself is worth honoring. "I like NATO," he says, in the way one might like a chair that occasionally supports one's weight. "I just wonder whether or not, if we needed NATO, would they be there for us?" This from a man actively contemplating the violation of a fellow member's sovereignty. It is a curious conception of loyalty: unconditional obedience demanded, unconditional restraint refused. Greenland, the ice-cold obsession. Greenland has become the geographic symbol of Mr. Trump's worldview: vast, underpopulated, rich in resources, and, crucially, belonging to someone else. Its strategic importance is real enough. Melting ice is opening Arctic shipping routes. Rare earth minerals glint beneath retreating glaciers. Russia is militarizing the high north, China is investing quietly. The Arctic, once peripheral, is becoming central. None of this, however, requires conquest. The United States already maintains a significant military presence in Greenland, most notably at Thule Air Base, secured through long-standing agreements with Denmark. American radar systems monitor missile trajectories across the polar region. Intelligence flows freely. Access is assured. Sovereignty has proved remarkably compatible with security, but sovereignty is precisely the problem. Mr. Trump does not merely want access, he wants ownership. His language betrays the mindset of a property developer confronted with a stubborn seller. If persuasion fails, pressure follows. If pressure fails, force becomes thinkable. This is imperialism without the intellectual scaffolding. No civilizing mission is offered, no legal justification advanced. Instead, there is a blunt assertion of entitlement dressed up as strategic necessity. If we don't take it, someone else will. It is the logic of the playground, elevated to grand strategy. For Denmark and Greenland's own government, the response has been polite disbelief shading into alarm. Greenland's leaders have reiterated that the island is not for sale, not for lease, and not for seizure. Denmark, a founding NATO member, has expressed confidence, perhaps performatively, that America would never violate Allied sovereignty. Europe's broader reaction has been a study in diplomatic yoga. Joint statements reaffirm Greenlandic autonomy while emphasizing transatlantic cooperation. Arctic security initiatives are highlighted. Everyone smiles. No one mentions invasion directly, lest saying the word make it real. Flattery as foreign policy. Into this delicately choreographed denial steps Mark Rutte, NATO's Secretary General, whose task is to keep the alliance intact while its most powerful member toys with arson. His approach has been to deploy flattery with surgical precision. Mr. Trump, he assures us, has done the right things for NATO by encouraging higher defense spending. Praise is lavished. Controversies are sidestepped. This is not hypocrisy, it is survival instinct. NATO is an alliance, not a monastery. It has always accommodated difficult personalities. Charles de Gaulle withdrew France from NATO's integrated command. Turkey periodically flirts with obstruction. America itself has oscillated between leadership and neglect. But never before has the alliance faced the prospect of internal invasion. Mr. Rutte's flattery is therefore less endorsement than anesthetic. It is intended to soothe the patient while the surgeons quietly remove the shrapnel. Whether it works is another matter, for flattery has diminishing returns. Mr. Trump does not merely want praise, he wants submission. And even submission may not suffice. Historical echoes, uncomfortable parallels. NATO has endured crises before. The Suez debacle of 1956 exposed rifts between America and its European allies. The Iraq War in 2003 fractured unity and credibility. Yet in each case, the alliance survived because its members ultimately recognized a shared interest in restraint. What makes the current moment different is not merely Mr. Trump's temperament, but his transactional conception of alliances. NATO, in his telling, is not a collective security arrangement rooted in shared values and mutual obligations. It is a protection racket. Pay up, or else. This worldview leaves little room for norms, laws, or trust. Treaties are temporary. Commitments are conditional. Sovereignty is negotiable. In such a system, the only constant is leverage. The irony, once again, is that Mr. Trump's actions have achieved the opposite of their stated aim. European defense spending has risen not because allies feel reassured by American leadership, but because they fear its absence, or worse, its unpredictability. Autonomy is being pursued not out of ambition, but necessity. In seeking to dominate NATO, Mr. Trump has accelerated the very decoupling he claims to oppose. The cold arithmetic of collapse. Should Mr. Trump ever act on his Greenland threat, the consequences would be immediate and profound. Article 5 would be tested beyond recognition. Allies would face an impossible choice: defend Denmark against America, or abandon the alliance's core principle. Either path leads to dissolution. Adversaries would watch closely. Russia would see confirmation that Western unity is performative. China would note that norms can be discarded when inconvenient. Smaller states would conclude that security guarantees are conditional. Sovereignty provisional. The damage would extend beyond NATO. International law, already frayed, would suffer another tear. The Arctic, once governed by cautious cooperation, would militarize rapidly. Trust, once lost, would not easily return, and for what? A land grab that adds little to American security but much to American isolation. A messiah with matches. Mr. Trump's foreign policy is often described as chaotic. This is too kind. It is coherent in its own way, coherent around the centrality of ego. Alliances exist to validate him. Institutions matter insofar as they applaud. When they do not, they are suspect. At 79, this approach is unlikely to mellow. Age has not brought reflection. It has brought amplification. The tantrums are louder, the stakes higher, the consequences graver. There is a certain tragic comedy in watching a man demand credit for saving an institution while methodically undermining the conditions of its survival. It is like praising oneself for fire safety while playing with petrol. Conclusion: the joke, and its cost. In the end, Mr. Trump's NATO saga is not merely about Greenland, defense spending, or Arctic strategy. It is about the fragility of systems when subjected to personal rule. NATO was designed to outlast individual leaders, to bind states through shared commitment stronger than transient egos. Its current trial suggests that design was optimistic. The irony is complete. The self-proclaimed savior stands poised as executioner. The alliance he claims to cherish is endangered by his affection. And the world, weary but watchful, is left to wonder whether this is the final act of a farce, or the opening scene of a tragedy. One thing, at least, is clear. If NATO survives this era, it will not be because it was saved by shouting. It will be because, once again, it endured despite the noise.